I'm not sure if you're aware, JV, but here in the Philippines is a third world country. A lot of people like, hey, you can only say that because you're already successful. We can never be successful here, unlike America or any other first world country. Now that you're not only on the path of spiritual awakening, but you also have that background of working inside the banking industry. Because I was like wondering, how does Coach JV know all of this stuffs? And then just I realized now you worked there for many years.
Yeah.
Now, what can you say about people, especially in
Hmm.
my country,
Hmm.
who, I guess if not, they haven't realized their potential yet, that they are afraid because all of these external factors like the government, third world country, lack of opportunities here in the Philippines. What can you say? Like, do they have chances or
Yeah.
hopes that they'll be able to create the life that they want to create?
Absolutely. Okay, so I'll dive into this. First of all, I'm going to say this with pure love, and so people can take this however they want. Okay, so every single person is living their life based on the indoctrination that they've been provided. So when you're a young child, right, from birth inside your mom's womb all the way to 8 years old, all you're getting, you're just a computer being programmed. That's it. There's no conscious thinking. So all it is the your grandparents, your parents, your government, the TV, the information, podcast, or not back then, but the information you're getting into your mind is just a right. And so if somebody is sitting in the Philippines right now and they're saying to themselves, because I'm in a third world country, I cannot do this. I am not able to do this. I am not free. They are exactly right. And they will always be right for their whole lifetime. And that will be passed down from child to child. But we need to understand how the brain works. So first of all, you have thought, which becomes an emotion, which becomes a belief system. And a lot of people don't talk about this. You have a little part of your brain at the bottom of your brain called the RAS, the reticular activating system. It's basically a human Google. So anything, the belief system that you put into your reticular activating system gives you confirmation and conviction. So if anybody listening to this says this guy's full of shit and I am in a third world country and you don't understand, your reticular activating system says you're right, and it's going to give you confirmation that that is truth and will convince you every single day that it is true, and it will show you the path. So the question is, how did I go from suicide? I didn't grow up in a rich family. I grew up in a middle class family. I grew up with some traumatic stuff happened to me as a child that shouldn't happen to a child. So I didn't have a great upbringing. My parents are great. I just didn't have some stuff happen to me that shouldn't happen to a child, right? So I had this deep rooted subconscious mind programming. So I had to reprogram the story. So it's very unlikely for me to go 16 years being a drug addict. And if you're ever experienced an opiate addict before, it's very hard for people to recover, number one. Number two, to become successful afterwards. What happens is it's a flip in the brain, right? So I had to change my thoughts, which became the emotion, which became the driver. Then I had to change my belief system. I was like, I can be wealthy and I can be spiritual. It doesn't matter what the hell anybody is doing around me. As long as I think about it, I feel the emotion. We need to move it from thought to heart. Once you feel it, it becomes a belief. And then your RAS has to give you confirmation. It doesn't matter if you live in the Philippines. It doesn't matter if you're in Vietnam. It doesn't matter if you're in Phoenix, Arizona. It doesn't matter if you're in South Africa. Your reticular activating system is not different than mine. That is truth. That's how God made us, right? So your reticular activating system will give you confirmation and then eventually conviction. So if somebody's in a third world country and they're sitting there and they start to think, oh, I'm super wealthy. And then they start to take that thought and they start to feel it. They imagine it and they can see it. That's the difference, is moving it from thought to feeling. Becomes an emotion. And then they start to believe it because they're actually visualizing driving the Lamborghini and then they're getting in their mansion. It doesn't matter if it's real in the physical reality. The reticular activating system has to give you confirmation of that. So maybe they're walking down the road, they're walking, they get on the public transportation. All of a sudden a Lamborghini drives by. That's confirmation. Your brain is like, whoa, I've never seen a Lamborghini around here. That's your brain saying, keep going, keep going. But then what happens is the indoctrination system says, no, 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 no. Look over here. You're in a impoverished country. You're not going to make it. And then you start the thought process over again. And then you feel emotional about it. So your dominant thought and belief and emotion will always be your current reality. Facts. Now, the problem with this is that there's deep-rooted subconscious mind programming. The mediocre poverty mindset was passed down from my grandpa to my dad to my, and it comes down to us. And the cool thing about the society that we live in with the connection, you're in the Philippines, I'm sitting here in Arizona, we're connecting right now. You have access to so much information. What we're dealing with is our grandparents and our parents' indoctrination when they didn't have these resources. They didn't know this was possible. And so then when you step out into this new brave world, you're judged greatly. That's demonic. That's not okay to think that way. It's like God made us all beautifully created to have this brain, and that's how the brain works. It's science. Like they didn't have this type of science back then. That's how the brain actually works. So everybody should look up the reticular activating system. And when I learned that, it blew my mind. It's totally for example, I have dyslexia. I struggle with education. I got my education, but it's unlikely for me to be the CEO of a company, owner of 8 companies. We built financial wealth. We're financially free. It's unlikely, but not in my brain. The world's eyes would say JV was, struggled in elementary. He struggled I can't even spell. I have an admin that does my spelling for me. I have dyslexia. And so but in the world's eyes, not in my eyes. In my eyes, I'm a king. I'm rich. I'm healthy. I'm wealthy. I'm abundant. So it's very important for people to understand this in a third world country, is that you can create whatever you want. And there's stories. You can find stories of people within your communities that have done it before. There's clues out there. And so I just want to talk to somebody as a human being. Forget where you live. Human being to human being. Your brain works exactly like mine. 100%. It's not because I live in Arizona, my reticular activating system works different than yours. Our brain is our brain. And the deep-rooted indoctrination, you brought up the matrix. It is the matrix. Like think about the matrix, the womb. You're the mother, that's the matrix, the womb, right? And so when you're in your womb, as you come out into the womb, the reality that you get put into, you don't get to pick that part. When you become an adult, you've been indoctrinated or programmed into that paradigm. So if you're looking at your life and you have poverty and there's chaos, you have a choice to change that. But you have to understand that you have to unwire the subconscious. It's not an easy thing, right? It's not like you're just going to be like, hey, I'm wealthy now. I'm wealthy now. I'm wealthy. And you can't put your hands underneath your hand and just sit there and hope a Lamborghini shows up. Faith without works is foolish. Once you start thinking and you start feeling, you have to program. And just like a pro athlete would do, basketball, shooting the free throw over and over again, you have to practice your affirmations over and over again. And so that's how I went from, and it was almost like ignorance. It was like I was so low that it's almost like maybe I had a benefit. I beat death, and I was like on my back, lost all my money, had to file bankruptcy. And I'm like, okay, I only have one way, is to go up. But I just realized that, man, the more I do this, the more I think positive, the more I believe in myself. Like I'm staring at a vision board right now in front of me, right? It's always there. And people say, man, it's unlikely to do what you did in your paradigm, not in mine, right? So hopefully that makes sense, that if we can just talk human being to human being, it doesn't matter if you grew up, you're living on a dirt floor right now. You could literally start to reprogram your subconscious mind. And I don't know how God does this stuff, but if he feeds the birds, he'll feed us, right? And so if you start to do that stuff, now maybe a Lamborghini is not going to show up the next day, right? But all of a sudden, you get a job somewhere, and then you start to connect, and then you start to build up. And like when I left corporate America I was making, well, almost $250,000 a year. And I walk out, everybody's like, what are you doing? Why are you walking out? I'm like, I believe that I'm going to be something great. I'm going to impact the world. And this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. So everybody told me 85% of small businesses fail. What I said was, what about the 15%? Why does nobody talk about the 15% that succeed? Right? So I changed my brain. When they said that, I said, no, 15% of businesses succeed. So I'm going to be the 15%, and then I'm going to become the 1% of the 15%. So it's all about the brain. And I love talking to people from different countries and different belief systems, because you're just in your reality is your belief system. That's what it is.
Love. Coach JV, that is so powerful. You've shared that it's okay because we were born and we haven't had the chance to choose who will be our mother, or what will be the womb that we will be living in for months up until we're born. And you've also shared to us that on the first like 4-7 years, those were the times that we're just receiving, we're just absorbing what we are seeing, what we are hearing, what we are feeling in our environment. Maybe majority of the time it's our families who've carried the same set of belief system from our parents, from our grandparents, from our ancient
Yes.
bloodline. And now that we have a chance, because there's so much accessibility and so much information across the globe, because of the power of the internet, um, and you've also mentioned that we can reprogram
Yes.
our set of belief systems that we've grew with. So
Mhm.
we can alter, we can change the belief system. Therefore, we can also change the result that we are actually manifesting or having in the physical realm. What are the like specific practices that
Mm.
we can do to continuously reprogram or change our belief system from scarcity, like we're living in this third world country, to abundance? More than, is
Yeah.
it like positive thinking? Because that's gonna be hard.
Yeah. 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 So the question, so so this is, I'll share with you what I do, and people can kind of fit it into their life. So I have this book right here, right? So what's really important is, remember, the reticular activating system. I'll keep going back to that. And it's so funny. I've been studying this for 16 years, and I just discovered the RAS this year, and I was like, I guess I was ready for it finally. God's like, you're ready to understand what the RAS is. Now that we understand the RAS, we are manifesting like lightning speed now. It's like boom, boom. So okay, remember, the RAS is just Google, right? It's a bottom part of your brain. Whatever you put into your RAS, whatever belief you put into your RAS, okay, this is important. And I'll go back to tactical, right? How we do this. Whatever you put into your RAS, it's going to give you confirmation. So if you say you are the greatest of all time over and over and over again, and you believe it and you can see it, it will give you confirmation of that. Okay. I say on all my YouTube videos, I'm the top health, mindset, crypto, and business coach in the world. What you believe in your heart, you think in your mind, will eventually become your words and become your reality. If you can see it in your mind, eventually you can hold it right here in your hands. What you repeatedly do gets ingrained in your subconscious mind. What gets ingrained in your subconscious mind becomes an unconscious activity. Okay, so now that we know that what we believe and feel will become our reality, how do we do that, right? So all of a sudden you've been indoctrinated. It's deep DNA, like you said. It's been from generation, I mean, ancestral stuff. There's a lot of ancestral trauma too. So you have to, just like you would rewrite a code in a computer, you have to rewrite the code in your brain. So how would you do that? Through physical activity, right? So number one is, every single day, you should always be writing down your goals: short-term, long-term, midterm. Okay. The reason why: the short-term goals are short-term activities for the day that would bleed into your midterm, and the midterm bleeds into the long-term. I don't care if it's the same thing you write down. Mine's the same thing almost every single day. Okay. The reason why, remember, my RAS is now seeing something physically that I'm writing. I'm physically doing it. I'm reading it. My RAS is like, oh, okay, you want to make 10 million a year. So it knows that's what I want. And it's a GPS. So I'm giving it its GPS. Okay. So that's the writing part. Then there's a visual part. Vision boards are extremely important. Vision boards are a great GPS for your brain. So if you're a visual person, pictures, I do pictures and writing. So our whole team in our academy, our headquarters, has vision boards. I know the vision of all my team. Everywhere you walk, there's a vision board, right? So we have the visual, which is vision, which is giving us that emotional connection. We're having the writing, which is physical, and it's actually scientifically proven when you write down your goals, you are guaranteed to be more successful. So now we're writing, we're seeing, and then we're repeating. So it's important to do like mantras, or I don't want to get religious. A lot of people do mantras in religion. You call them affirmations. But here's the problem with affirmations: if you're doing them without belief, it's almost like, don't do it, right? So when you write it down, you have to feel it. When you're seeing it, you have to believe it. And when you're saying it, you have to feel it. So now you're writing it, you're seeing it. So here's an example: I'm so happy and grateful for the money that comes to me in increasing quantities from multiple sources on a continuous basis. I got that from Bob Proctor in 2009. And I've been saying that every single day, thousands of times in my brain, over and over again. How do I know when to say it? Is when I'm sitting here and I'm running all these companies and shit hits the fan and I start getting negative. So as soon as a negative thought comes in, I trigger. You can take like a rubber band or something, or you can go boop. And so you boom, I'm so happy and grateful for the money that comes to me in increasing quantities from multiple sources on a continuous basis. When you do an action like this, where you snap something at the same time, or you tap, what it does is it triggers your body that when a negative thought comes up, I need to do this affirmation. Then your RAS is only hearing the affirmation. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. You're literally reprogramming the computer. Now, this is where people get frustrated, because I think billions of people have read the book The Secret. I'm not sure, millions, at least multi millions, right? And so why aren't more people multimillionaires? Why aren't people living in yachts and fixing their lives? Because you can't just think about it, you have to feel it. So Dr. Joe Dispenza, if people have access to the internet and YouTube, and Dr. Joe Dispenza is very important to listen to. He bridged science and religion together, right? That was very taboo back in the days, especially with our parents and stuff and their religious beliefs. But who created science? God. God created religion. God created people. They created religion. They created science, right? And so God says, pray with discernment. Faith without works is foolish, right? When you pray, when somebody accepts it with a feeling and vibration, you can heal that person. Someone can be healed through prayer. That's why when a big congregation gets over somebody with cancer, if the person is not willing to accept it, they'll block it. But if they're like, yes, thank you, God, and everybody's praying over, and that frequency is actually going into that person. Again, it's the affirmation with belief. So when you're saying, I'm so happy and grateful for the money that comes to me in increasing quantities from multiple sources, I can see the multiple sources, and I've been saying that for 9 years. Well, 9 years later, I have multiple companies in increasing quantities from multiple sources on a continuous basis. We keep getting equity in more and more companies. My RAS gives me confirmation and it gives me conviction, and I just have to stay in the same spot doing the same activities, and it comes to you. And it's very hard for people to believe, because this is esoteric mumbo jumbo to people, right? They're like, that's not how it works. You got to go to school, you got to get a good job, and you got to get health insurance. The problem with our society is you're getting a job that's completely out of alignment with who you are just to make money to survive. We're not here to survive. We're here to thrive. We're here to grow. We're here to create. And the best way to kill a human being is to stop them from creating. The best way to kill a human being is keep them in the left hemisphere of their brain, which is facts, figures, numbers, logic. The heaven on earth exists in the 90%, which is God, higher consciousness, love, omnipresence, Allah, Buddha, whatever you believe in. It's the higher consciousness. So this world that we live in, so if you're in a third world country, they keep you in your left hemisphere of the brain. You can't succeed. No, you can't have money. You can't have the power, right? They don't want you in the higher conscious. That's why often people in third world countries have very high connection to the religion, because they're trying to get back into the higher conscious. God, help me out. When God's like, I got you. Like, you can already do this. God's like, I gave you the ability to fix this. One of you just has to stand up and understand that you have freedom right now. Freedom is here and freedom is here. And I'll give you another example of that, and this may help. As I met this guy one time when I was an executive at a bank. This guy was sitting in the branch lobby, right? They're called branches or banks or whatever. And everybody was scared of him. He had tattoos everywhere, and he was all tatted up. He had a tank top on. And I was like, can you go check on this guy? He's sitting in the lobby, he's drinking our water. And I walk over, I sit down, and I love to learn from people. I said, hey, brother, you okay? And he's really sweaty. It's really hot here in Arizona. And he goes, dude, I'm tripping out. I said, what happened? He goes, I just got out of prison. I've been out of prison for 3 days now, and I was in prison for a very long period of time. Before I went into prison, he goes, I said, what happened, man? He goes, well, my mom was being beaten by my stepdad was beating my mom, and I murdered him. And so he said, and they put me in prison for, I think it was like 17 years. So when he went into prison, they didn't have cell phones, right? So people would call someone on a regular phone, go visit people. You would spend, you go knock on someone's door, you would visit the person. In America now, nobody communicates. It's all social. It's like robots, right? So he said, this was very powerful. It changed my life. He said, I've been walking around downtown Phoenix here, and you guys are more in prison than I was in prison. I said, what do you mean? He goes, all of you guys are just staring at your phones. Nobody's communicating with each other. He goes, I felt more free in prison than I do here. He goes, you guys are trapped. And I go, well, tell me more. Like, he goes, I feel this frequency with you guys that's changed. I remember when I used to, lived in society, is like, we'd go play outside and we'd play till the lights came on, and we'd communicate. I'd eat dinner at my friend's house. He goes, nobody even looks at each other anymore. He goes, we had better community in prison. He goes, I was free in prison. My heart was free. I was connecting with God. I was reading the Bible. Freedom is in your heart, and freedom is in your mind. It's state of mind, and it's your heart, right? And what we've been taught is that freedom is money. Freedom is a new phone. Freedom is a new car. And that is the biggest lie we've been sold and indoctrinated. In America, they call it the free, the American dream. Complete bullshit. It's the American trap, dude. Americans have more obesity than anybody, diabetes. We have opiate abuse, alcohol, suicide, domestic violence. Too much freedom in a human being, not understanding that they're already, because we think freedom is a thing, right? And it traps people in the cyclic thing where they're reaching outside themselves. And when I realize that freedom's in my heart and mind, I'm always free. All this stuff could go away. and I'm already free. I'm already rich. So hopefully that helps people. I know it's a deep, deep dive into it, but it's good to understand this stuff because people hear when I heard it, I was like, that doesn't make sense. I can just think of something. But when I learned how to think and feel, that's the difference. Your heart is going to drive you. So